Okay. So let's see.
All right, since you're hiding from me, let me do this again. There you go. Sent.
What you looking for? You looking for the document you sent over?
That I sent yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Want me pull it up? The
Uh,
software.
no. Um, I'd wrote up my outline
Okay.
of things. Hmm. All set. Let's try it this way. I didn't send it from. That is strange. I don't want to do this from memory. I can do it from memory, but my brain yesterday, that wasn't
Well,
it.
take your time. Take your time.
Essentially, it was, I kind of looked at it as an upside down pyramid of things to talk about with you. I guess we're looking at orienting each other. Uh, so things to talk about with you
Mhm.
about who and what the Communiversity is, and um, you know, mission, the usual stuff, mission, purpose,
Right.
goals,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I don't know why it's not coming up. We do it from the phone. Sometimes that happens.
Okay. Yeah, this one I had problems getting into my system. It was really, really slow. But that happens sometimes we're out here in is it we're in the eastern area.
Yeah, interesting.
I think they probably got a tower down or something. They have to.
It's on my phone, but not on the computer.
Mm-hmm. That happens.
I, I,
Should have did that.
and I apologize. I should have been the one calling you.
Oh no, I'm good. I recognize that um my clients be busy, so sometimes I gotta be like, hey, what you doing?
Get ready to do something that I wasn't supposed to be doing this in this order. I'm supposed to be doing it in that order. Okay, cool. So here's what I had. Who is a community? What is its mission and goals? The organization structure, history of its evolution, status of current programs and relationship to each other. Then communications coordinator, role, job description, and pay and play paperwork.
Okay.
What you got for me?
For me, I have the role of a marketing strategist, being able to look at what we can do for you marketing wise and getting that same language together because I notice that sometimes I'm talking over my clients' heads and I don't like that. To have them understand marketing in its full context, digital marketing, traditional marketing, OTT marketing, the services that
OTT is
over the top television. That's when I can actually put you in the homes of people watching on their Samsung TV because they're watching app TV. So
Okay.
that's where we're going with this. And at the $1,000 mark, you qualify to be one of those programs. So we could actually take a worker's story, and we'll get into all of that. And
Mm.
then we'll be looking at the notes that you gave me last time because I will be compiling these notes for you to put in a brand book. And do you currently have a website right now that gives your mission, your vision, and all that other good stuff?
You have a website.
Yeah,
It
I went on
needs
Communiversity, but does it? Let me see. Hold on. I'm gonna pull it up. What is it?
the communiversitysouth.org.
Okay, that's what I have. Okay, that's what I have. Okay. All right. Let me go back to that. Okay. Okay. Yep. So I'm here now. So I can reference everything that we're about to do. All right. So
Yeah.
that's the scope. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you get started so I can listen and take some good notes.
Okay. Well, let me, I guess, pull it up because I end up doing it from the top of my head. Sometimes the wording is not the same.
Okay.
Um, uh, but yeah, what I was hoping is that this is, more detailed. That's the formal thing, right?
Hmm.
Of course, when you hone it down for the elevator speech and all that.
Okay.
But so, uh, the community came out of a vision about the need for constant and and serious political education around the big questions um, affecting our community and our people, um, and to really be historical, right? Um, um, Black Workers for Justice would do educational series. We would do worker schools. But before that, there was something that was called um, before BWFJ. There were a number of us in another organization called African People's Party, and we started something called the Institute of Black Political Studies. Go somewhere. And basically, what we did was monthly forums that raised key questions that were happening in the community. And one of the so we always raise things like um, international issues that are affecting international solidarity, international issues affecting the Black community, um, issues about independent Black politics and Black political action. Why independent? Um, our views on that. Um, One of the ones that was most telling, I guess, for me was we held one. It was approximately April 5th, 1975. Why do I remember that date? Because it was about 3 days after, or maybe May 5th, but April 5th. It was about 3 days after um, the Vietnamese war ended and I guess what folks call the North Vietnamese walked into Saigon,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we had happened to have a speaker who was Vietnamese, was a teacher at Temple University. This was based in Philly. And he taught in the Pan-African, what became the Pan-African Studies Department at Temple.
Mm-hmm.
And actually became really close to us. And he used to um, he specialized in history of global global South struggles, political economy, and of course Vietnamese history. And it just happened that he was speaking to us right after that happened. So it was so timely. And he was able to break down not just the history, but the dynamics of what was going on in the country. And so that was the kind of things that we brought, right? Um, and so that is also the kinds of things that, that we wish to delve into, um, in the community in terms of the larger picture.
Mm-hmm.
But we also want to do it very specifically to help develop the leadership of um of of everyday people, of everyday Black community. And when you look at um in terms of political economy and our relationship to the overall economy of the United States, the development politically of the United States, um, the majority of us are workers. The majority of us get up every day and have to sell our labor somewhere, right? And when I say the majority, I'm also talking the majority of working age. But most of us are either looking, working, used to work, dependent working, on working. And so, we realize that in order for us to really think about changing our conditions, mobilizing people, then we have to understand where people are coming from, what folks have to deal with every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And deal with the economic questions and help people also understand about not only organizing in the street, but organizing in the job.
Okay.
And that's kind of like how the development happened
I got
to
so
the
many questions.
establishment
I
of
have
Black
so many
justice.
questions. Okay,
Okay.
so what does organizing on the job look like?
Building workplace committees that address issues that happen on the job and such as health and safety, such as hours, such as, discrimination, such as um, uh, uh, general working conditions, also that lead to the development of unions. Because when building organization on a job, you then begin to understand that in general, I mean, the purpose of most jobs is to what? Make money.
Mm-hmm.
That's in capitalism, the purpose of companies is to make money. You go into a job because what? You trying to feed your family.
Mm-hmm.
Them things don't always match. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the time, they don't. And so, because the majority of our folks are workers, therefore, our orientation is we've got to deal with how do we help people, fight for their own. See, and understand that they deserve and it is their right to fight for their own interests and our own interests as a community and as workers. And that leads you to the question of union development. And so Black Workers for Justice played a major role in the development of the North Carolina Public Service Workers Union. And we play in that and the fundamental orientation of BWFJ has been is to orient folks, is to place ourselves, um, is to build our organization around build being is based at the workplace. And
Okay.
so we also understand that we're whole people. So we've got to deal with the political issues outside and the issues internally. And those get to be political as well, right?
Okay.
It is policy of North Carolina or Georgia, and then you look at, across the South to be quote unquote pro-business. Well, what does that mean? That really means anti-worker.
Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about an article I just read on yesterday with Amazon releasing the newest robot that they have that's going to replace their worker. So yeah, it's anti to we don't even want you in the workplace anymore. They're talking about the drones that they have and the new robots that have these robots were sensitive in touch and they could know how to pick up a package based upon the sensors in the robot's hands. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking, whoa, like this just got really big. But when I asked you that question, I'm like, okay. And you said anti. Yeah, anti in that they've said that they only need a third of the workforce. So the rooms that I've been in, they are only wanting to use a third of the population. So,
And they have as part of their business model the high turnover that's in there.
mm-hmm,
That's part of their business model.
right.
Not only plan for that, their method of management.
Okay. Right.
You know, I'm not going to say it's designed to force that, but is designed to accommodate and to say, okay, cool, whatever, right?
Okay.
The post office has a management uh methodology of management by stress. That is a management tool.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How hard can I push you?
I heard about it.
See
Yeah.
to how much I can get out of you. Well, what does that mean on my side?
That you in a position, you're in survival mode. That's what it means. It means that they place you in survival mode on purpose. I had a friend who told me that they would put on the job board of McDonald's. If you lose your job, the only place you're gonna go is McDonald's. So you better adhere to the rules because she was a postal worker and she sued. My father was a retired postman.
Mhm.
So I've heard about those stories and of the long days and the putting you in survival mode such that you become obedient and you become scared and you become a good worker based upon fear, the losing of your job.
And that's why unions develop.
Right.
The purpose of a union, the sole purpose of a union is to fight for workers' interests.
Okay.
That's their purpose.
Okay.
Now, we know that there's all kinds of other, there's stuff in this country, right? In terms of racism and whatnot.
Right.
But fundamentally, the role of a union is to fight for the interests of workers. And when you look at the condition of Black workers benefit most in the union,
Okay.
regardless of all the other stuff, right?
Right.
So then the question is,
But you're gonna
so
get that wage. You're gonna get that wage and you're gonna get that vacation.
condition,
Get
sister,
that.
I would not be sitting here.
Right.
I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
I'd be on the second job
Right.
right now.
Right.
If
Wasn't
it
for
wasn't for retirement, if it wasn't for pension, if it wasn't for health care.
right. Right.
And so I'm real clear about that,
Okay.
right? And so the question, and so we have to, like help think collectively, and that's what's called trade union consciousness, being real conscious, okay?
Yes. So, because
Mhm.
I'm hearing you right now. This is a transference of energy that is so overwhelming for me. Like as my hair gets longer, I'm developing more sensitivity. I noticed that somebody told me that they're tentacles. I was like, okay, and as you're speaking to me, I'm like, okay, so my mind is unfolding on so many levels because knowing that is only going to be a third of people in place, seeing where we're going as far as energy is concerned, seeing where we're going as far as smart cities are concerned. How do you vision this for the future where education is going to be not a right, but part of what the elite have. Um,
Yeah, because that's their next move that they
right,
move.
right. And that's the point that I bring to the table because I've been in those. I walked into the education space as a marketer, not as a teacher. So as they're sitting here talking to a marketer and not a teacher, a person that's majored in education, they're giving me. I'm listening to the plan, sitting in the audience, and my teachers around that they because they've taught them to be teachers, they're not hearing it. So this communiversity is going to be key. Key. So how do you want it to act? How do you want it to operate? How do you want it to grow? How do you want it to snare at this perceived inequity? Not perceived, but this huge inequity.
Like it ain't perceived.
Yeah, yeah. This is
This is not an intellectual conversation.
right.
This is
No,
simply,
this is about getting ready for
this is
war.
about getting ready. Okay, this is about getting ready.
You're talking to a
Right?
warrior. So, yes, ma'am.
So the other part of that is just because they got that as the plan, you know, they didn't plan for the slaves to be free either.
Right, 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 right.
So, just because they got that as a plan, don't mean that that's what's got to happen.
Well, no, communiversity is going to be key because it's like I see it. I see it and I believe it. So I just
Okay.
want to know how you going to, and we might not need to have this conversation on film. We might need to have this conversation one-on-one in person. But
Mhm.
so give me because do you plan on spreading through affiliates, having other houses?
So let me see. So that's Black Workers for Justice, and Black Workers for Justice is the organizing,
Okay.
strategizing in terms of building, and actually, part of this. Um, so, for example, just in terms of reality, so we're not just talking. You think we just talking pie in the sky.
No, we're
You
not.
know,
You got a house
that,
full of
that
resources.
BWFJ, that North Carolina Public Service Workers Union, which has a couple of thousand members,
Hmm.
was a vision that we worked on for that was at least it was founded in 98.
I was just gonna ask you, oh wow, 98.
So BWFJ came into existence in 81,
Okay.
and it was a process. I'd say that we started in the late 80s. It was at least 10 years.
Okay.
Okay. Now, that's the organizing strategy. We also helped start something called the Southern Workers Assembly.
And how did you do it? How did you do it? How did that 10 years, what did that 10 years look like? You can't just give me that much history and just roll over. What that 10 years look like?
So, um, first,
And were you with the post office during that time?
well, honey, I was not the chief strategist.
Okay, but I know, but you worked up under him. You sound like you was near
I
him.
mean, I have to give all props to our brother Saladin, right?
Okay.
That you'll see pictures of, and we're gonna have pictures in the building, right?
Okay.
But a collective organization was built, was strengthened. BWFJ was strengthened. At one point, we had a larger um, steering committee with an executive committee. We're down with like the executive committee, and we're going through a whole bunch of transitions.
Okay.
But suffice to say that the organizing strategy was built collectively. Saladin was like the most strategic thinker. The brother was brilliant. We used to fight like hell all the time too.
Okay.
Right. Um, but essentially, um, before there was the North Carolina Public Service Workers Union, there was a North Carolina Public Service Workers Organization.
Okay.
Before there was the organization, there was the network.
And what did the network look like?
And the network were um, essentially in the workplace committees
Okay.
that developed at sites where folks had issues on the job.
Okay.
And basically what it was a 12 or 13-year process of, on one hand, people understanding about, they had the right to fight and fighting on a job. Some battles were lost, some were won, some people stayed together, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then we connected. So it was like Ashaki working over here with this committee, and Saladin over there with that committee, and so over here with this committee,
And were you
right?
taking things to HR or were you just having a meeting with management? How did that look?
Well, HR is always part of management.
I mean, I know, but I mean, I'm just saying it
The
wasn't
role
an
of HR
individual.
is to look out for management,
Right, right.
to
So, but
manage.
I
Right.
know it couldn't have been one person going HR. No.
No,
With
well, the first thing is about building a committee of the workers who and talking with them about what they see as a problem, what's
okay,
the issue, right? And encouraging them to work together.
to do it. Okay, right. Because I knew it wasn't no one soul thing. Because you
Oh,
fight,
no,
you
no.
don't.
There's never, ever, I don't care what they put on media, it's never one person.
I need you to say that on film. That's what I need you to say on film.
Oh,
Because
yeah, we
yeah,
will. Yes.
okay,
Never one person. Like the Amazon, the first place that won a union in Amazon was up in New York, Staten
okay,
Island.
okay,
And it was two brothers, two young brothers,
okay,
uh, Chris Smalls and Derek. I forgot Derek's last name. That's a function of the media, right?
right,
Because they pushed immediately they pushed Chris Smalls out there.
right,
Chris, there's no way that you're gonna organize thousands of folks by yourself. It don't happen.
right.
Okay. It takes a committee
Okay.
that reaches out to other folks.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, there were committees who developed, and they might have taken, it might have been an issue about safety, you know,
Okay.
might have been, lights needed, you working late at night, and then no lights for you to
The
walk
parking lot.
home on a campus. It
Right.
might be, not enough PPE during the pandemic. That was
Okay.
definitely something.
Okay.
Um, it might be, not getting paid overtime.
Okay.
It might be being forced to work off the clock.
Right.
It might be any one of a number of things,
Okay.
right? But the point being, what it was that their workers themselves are collectively willing to fight for,
Okay.
and part of that is like helping them understand that they can do it.
Okay. And so what does the meeting look like? So you got a committee. So apparently these people are meeting. How are they meeting? Are they meeting in person? They meeting by phones? Back then
But
in the 80s, what were they doing?
they would meet in person. A lot
In
of times
person.
you meet at McDonald's,
Okay. Okay.
anywhere they were comfortable.
Okay. Outside of
Okay.
the workplace to discuss.
Outside of work, no, you can't do it at the workplace,
Right. Okay.
right? So it's outside of work, small committees, right? And the funny part was, where was I? Well, the other part of this, BWFJ deals has the communities. I won't say it's not hard and fast, but a community side and a workplace side.
Okay.
Folks who like, so I was always stronger in work on the community side and
Okay.
dealt with, like, community stuff. But we all work together and support,
The
right?
initial. The,
And show the connections, you know, to each other,
and
right?
what did the community side look like?
So it might be, for example, I worked on one of the campaigns I worked on was that there was cab drivers in Rocky Mount. At one point in time, there was one cab company called United Cab.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the history of United Cab is that they came together because the bus system in Rocky Mount did not carry, no, many of the black women worked in Miss Ann kitchen. They had to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
Buses did not go where they had to go.
Mm-hmm.
Their husbands formed a co-op,
Okay.
right? And it became, and a lot of folks don't know that,
Yeah, you
right?
know what I'm saying? You can't say that without saying because you why do black people don't work together? We did, we do.
We did, and we
Do.
do. We
Right,
just don't recognize
right,
that we do,
right,
right? Um, and folks will hear a story and they'll be in the middle of the story and say, "Well, we don't do so and so," but we just showed you,
right,
right?
right.
Anyway, they formed a co-op. They worked together and formed what is called a co-op,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they said, "Oh, we'll form a co-op." No, they banded together, they formed United Cab.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
United Cab began to take, other people. Anyway, um, the city council, anyways, it got so good that some of the folks began to buy other cars and be owners and not drivers.
Okay.
Okay. And then some of the drivers sometimes got lax, didn't
Okay.
clean the cab out, you
Okay.
know, my insurance on whatever. So at city council, so now go to the 80s, city council came up with a ordinance to regulate the cab company. And the driver and the cab company, United Cab, now mind you, United Cab was the only cab company in all of Rocky Mount,
Okay.
right? Everybody, black folks and white folks,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
They making money.
They making money.
Yeah.
And so the city came up with a regulation, wanted to regulate, and so they were afraid it was going to drive them out of business.
Mm.
And so one of the cab companies, why cab owners' wives snuck literally. She called herself sneaking to the worker center, right, to
Mm-hmm.
talk to somebody because she heard that we help folks like
Okay.
that. And so at any rate, we came, they had we said, okay, so I got assigned to working with them.
Okay.
And so they had a meeting, we called a meeting of the drivers and the owners, right? So like,
Okay.
what is the issue? What do you want to do? Why is it, what will this do?
So you arbitrated the situation for the community for a solution.
No, they arbitrated themselves.
Oh, okay. 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 You just there to facilitate.
That's right. My job is to help them build organization that
Okay.
they determine demands
Okay.
and they become, now we may help spokespeople. We may go with folks. We may, in fact, sometimes talk.
You create the space. You created the space for it.
We create the space for them in a safe space for them to build their organization, understand their own, decide upon their own demands,
Okay.
to hash through that stuff, and then get the strength and the confidence to go. So, okay, you got to go. We're not going for you.
Right. Got it.
That's major.
Okay. So then
We,
you took the skill sets from organizing the community and then applied it to issues within the community that then needed to be arbitrated, safe spaces so that you can make the community also work better.
right.
You bet.
So that the community, but
Bro.
what is that? That is the community feeling its own strength.
Right. You just
Not
gave them
nobody,
space to do
I
it.
know Messiah coming to save them,
Right, right, right,
right? We got to save ourselves.
right,
We have the capacity to what? Make decisions,
right.
look at policy, make decisions, speak for ourselves, right? And
Hmm.
fight for ourselves.
Okay.
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 So this same principle, in the workplace, except, in the workplace, the stakes are much higher because now I'm immediately, I could lose my job,
Right,
right?
right,
That pounce, that balance of power is very immediate,
right.
right? Um, but we also help folks recognize that like there are some laws, even if when you don't have a union, it's called concerted activity. When two or more workers work together to uh, to address a situation on a job, that's called concerted activity. And at least for now, according to the National Labor Relations Act, that is illegal to retaliate against workers for doing that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, do companies do that?
Of course they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do.
Of course they do. Okay. But it is at least the law,
Right.
right? And you can go to the National Labor Relations Board, theoretically,
Mm-hmm.
right? And get and for redress.
Okay.
And for example, there were some workers here in Savannah that happened to, and they had some stuff. They jumped out there, but they didn't have the organization together. They didn't, it's different factors, right?
Okay.
But the owner of it was a restaurant, the owner of the restaurant fired everybody. Well, they were at least able to go to the National Labor Relations Board, file a charge against the owner, and a year later, hey sis, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back. You're gonna stay with Marie? Okay, cool. All right, peace. Um, a year later, there was a hearing with an administrative law judge who ruled against the the owner, right? And said no, it was illegal for you to have done that. I don't remember what they asked for redress. Okay.
Okay.
They could technically they could ask for their job back. The company would have to hire, bring
Okay.
them back,
Okay.
right? Or fines, right? But admitted there is that process, right? So at any rate, um, um, teaching folks that our strength, we don't have the money. You cannot outspend Amazon. You
Hmm.
cannot outspend. So the issue is not money. You cannot play on that playing field.
Capital, about human capital.
The question is organization.
Yeah.
Is
Right back to perspective.
organization.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental thing. Think about this. So when they say what's going to happen or what is, think about this. Last fall, there was a strike of dock workers, East Coast.
Right.
Um, there's one union on the union on the East Coast covers from Maine to Mobile.
I'm
Might
from
be New Orleans.
I'm from Mobile. Yeah, that area. Yeah.
Okay. So you
Hmm.
know about ILA.
No, I don't. I just know we're a port city.
Okay.
And a
So
lot of people down there work, seamen work
that's
that
right.
supports our
That's
economy.
right.
Hmm.
That's right. Just understanding everything that comes on the East Coast, ships,
Hmm.
goods, those computers, the
Hmm.
monitor, the
Hmm.
bricks,
Hmm.
you know, most of that comes from overseas other countries
Hmm.
and has to be what? Let's think about how does it get to you,
Supply chain, right.
the
Right.
supply chain. All right. If they don't work, what's sitting in the ocean?
Goods and
How
children,
much?
according to
All
them.
right.
And children, according to them in them ships.
Oh,
According to the internet. Yeah.
wow. Trillions of dollars worth of goods, right?
Loading.
Sitting in the ocean.
Hmm.
Because guess what? The dock workers say we ain't unloading.
Right. That's a lot of power. That's a
That's a lot
lot
of
of
power.
power.
That's a lot of power.
Right.
Okay. The dock workers union locals from Wilmington, North Carolina, down through Mobile, a majority Black.
Yep. Yep. When the girl come to school with the cart, her daddy work on or Scott Paper Company. So in Mobile, that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? You worked seaman or you were logistics. My granddaddy was a truck driver, or getting the goods through. As a matter of fact,
Mhm,
I'm looking at some air property that I mean as a gas station because the trucks coming through a Watts is an
mhm,
hour and a
mhm.
half from Mobile. So strategically, we
That's
would be
right.
in good
That's
space
right. There
for,
you go. Think that way.
yeah.
Okay. Teaching art. So that is part of what we, okay?
Right,
So it's like thinking, get folks who think strategically about where they are. We are not just consumers.
right,
That's a strategic shift of thinking, to get you to not deal with what you bring to this economy.
right.
Okay? So what if we say we want the minimum wage to be $20 an hour?
What happened?
We ain't coming in
It sure happened. They
Go
want to
ahead.
quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between where we are now and that? It's organization and consciousness.
Okay. So Communiversity it is what? What is it?
Our job, our job is to deal with the consciousness.
Consciousness. Okay.
Is to
How
deal
do you
the
do that? Now that's
people.
huge. That's
Yes.
huge. That's huge, ma'am. That is huge.
Okay.
How are you dealing with the consciousness?
So, I mean, so for us, it has to be tied to the organizational strategy.
Okay. And what's organizational strategy?
Organizational strategy comes from BWFJ.
Okay. Okay. So the organizing workers and making sure that they are in the community as well as organized on the job through committees so that they have power in oneness, in wholeness.
Mhm.
Okay.
Essential, yeah, in a
Okay.
nutshell, right? Our job, which is not to say that BWFJ will not do education and stuff like that, but we created Communiversity to be the educational arm as well, and which includes
Okay.
being archiving the history, not only of BWFJ, but all of this work
Okay.
that has been done particularly in Eastern North Carolina, right?
Okay. Okay.
Of struggles of workers and things that BWFJ has been in, but other organizations in Eastern North Carolina. We want to archive that.
So would you
That's
consider yourself the hub of of employers unions coming up out of Rocky Mount and BWFJ?
we would we would we were known for fighting for unions, um, fighting for workers.
Who else was doing this? Who else is doing this?
Nobody,
Okay, that's what I thought. That's,
nobody. At least nobody that lit there. Now, NAACP call themselves doing some stuff, but
but yeah, okay, okay, got it.
okay,
Okay,
right. So getting back, so I just want you. So anyway, I'm saying all that to say that our motives for our deepest mission is
okay.
about this political education of building a movement, right? We're part of one aspect of the Black liberation movement in building this movement that needs, we're the education wing. We see
So,
ourselves
so you
education
see,
wing.
so you see yourself making sure that workers know how to advocate and get the working conditions that they need. Do you see yourself? Did I say that right?
I would say
Both in the
yes.
community
I
and
would
on the
also
job.
say that the part of it is also understand getting, Black community that to understand that
Their power.
their power